Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Joteka Edie, and I am the founder and CEO of Full Circle Strategies, along with our partners at Goldman Sachs, Values Partnerships, and some amazing organizations. I am so proud to welcome you to the latest stop in the 1 Million Black Women Listening Tour. A few short months ago, Goldman Sachs joined with Black women-led organizations to announce the largest ever capital commitment focused on investing in Black women. $10 billion over 10 years to impact the lives of 1 million Black women. Yes, I said 10 billion with a B. We quickly started the process by launching a virtual listening tour to hear your thoughts, because we know in order for this initiative to work and be successful and to be impactful, we must first listen to Black women. But what does that all really mean? How will this program work? And just as important, as we discuss early childhood education and literacy, what are the specific challenges facing young students, their parents, educators, and how can those challenges be addressed by investments? Well, that is what tonight is all about. We will jump in and learn and listen tonight. We will learn more about the 1 Million Black Women program. We will listen to our panelists and our audience to understand the barriers, but also the opportunities that exist for us to disrupt the challenges that students are facing. And more importantly, we will also discuss how investment capital might help overcome those barriers. We will be conducting these listening events as we have been over the coming months. And throughout this process, the team at 1 Million Black Women will take what we've learned and use it to directly inform the investments that we will make. Well, before we get started and before I introduce our first honored guest tonight, I really want you to join in on the conversation. We want you to use that very famous chat box and make sure that you tell us what you're thinking, shout out someone that you see, or if you hear something that you really like, make sure you double click and tell us what you're thinking in the chat box. We also encourage you to join us on social media. Our partner, L. Joy Williams, she is live tweeting tonight, and we encourage you to use the hashtag Black Women Impact and encourage you to tweet and share on Instagram and Facebook and all of the platforms about this important conversation. So now I am honored and I'm so excited to introduce our very first honored guest of tonight. Let's welcome Reggie Hudlin.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Reggie. How are you?
I am fine.
Well, you're very busy as well. So for everyone, Reggie Hudlin is one of the busiest producers in Hollywood. This summer alone, he's been making headlines with his project with Miss Oprah Winfrey and the Oprah Winfrey Network, and a brand new series with Tiffany Haddish. And for those of you who do not know, Reggie was the first Black producer of the Emmys, and last week was announced as the executive producer for the 2021 Emmy Awards broadcast with a live audience. So Reggie, you've been very busy this summer.
It's been a wonderful summer, doing everything. I'm also doing a line of comic books, doing some television series, preparing several movie projects. So it's a wonderful time. The Black interest, the interest in Black culture in Hollywood tends to be cyclical. And we're in a great moment right now. So it's a great time for Black creators to be aggressive and tell new stories and reflect our lives, which is why I was so excited to hear about the Goldman Sachs project, because for me, what you guys are doing really speaks to me. It speaks about my mother, who raised 3 boys while working full-time and earning her PhD. And, that kind of woman, I've known many women like that, those kind of like super high achieving Black women. They're not famous, but they are all incredible. And working on this program, I got to meet so many women like that. And the idea that you guys will be helping those kind of bootstrapping, high achieving women go to the next level is so wonderful.
Absolutely. And you raise a very important point, Reggie, when you say this initiative is about all of those women across this nation. And despite your very, very busy schedule, you got involved to tell the story of 1 million Black women in a very special way by filming a very special video. And before you introduce and we introduce that very special video, tell us what it meant to you to actually film this video project.
Well, first, when I got the phone call about the project, I did exactly what you did, which is say, wait, did you say B? Not million, you said billion. That's wait, let me just see that in print. Okay, this is real. And I just thought this is the kind of transformative opportunity that, quite frankly, I couldn't imagine ever occurring. And I mean, anyone who knows, sociology knows that when you help mothers, when you help women, particularly Black women, you lift the entire nation up. So the fact is, this is not just a great thing for women. This is not a great thing for Black women. It's a great thing for the entire country, which means the entire world. So there's nothing more important than what this project is. And I had to make room. I was doing 5 things at once. I said, well, now I'm doing 6 because I've got to do whatever it takes for this thing to become successful.
Absolutely. Well, Reggie, thank you so much. And without any further ado, we are going to introduce this very special video of 1 million Black women. Thank you so much, Reggie.
Thank you.
So I often tell this story about my mother. When she came off the midnight shift, because she worked in a paper factory, she took her clothes off outside because they smelled so bad. And she would come in, she would whisper in our ear, all things are possible. You can do anything. Now, I would guarantee you my mother did not know what subliminal messaging was, but she knew what positive thinking was.
Black women are the key. They're exhausted. They're holding up the world.
Let's be candid about this. Black women are central to the Black community. They're heads of households. They're our mothers. They are our daughters, our grandmothers, our nieces, our wives, our partners, our lovers.
There is no task more important. There is no community more innovative. There is nothing more transformational or more needed at this critical moment in our country's history.
There's a real need for job creation, not for handouts, but for hand-ups.
We are not going to advance racial equity and see the progress that we want to see if we don't focus on Black women.
We looked at what are the causes, what are the sources? Is it education? Is it healthcare? Is it just jobs and making the economy better and giving them more economic opportunity? Tell me the one thing. Well, mic drop. It's not one thing.
It is just common sense to invest in our mothers, daughters, sisters, and friends, empowering the women who have invested so much in us. And that's why Goldman Sachs is partnering with organizations led by Black women, listening, learning, and making the largest ever capital commitment, $10 billion, to fuel the futures of 1 million Black women and their families. $10 billion that will be invested in ideas, organizations, and institutions that impact Black women, starting at birth and at every key moment in her life. Access to prenatal care, early childhood education, broadband critical to closing the homework gap, and loans to enable high-achieving students to attend top colleges of their choice. And later, as these women move into the next phase of their lives, access to capital for their own small businesses, to have quality preventative health care, and ways to save for their children's future and their own retirement.
the more that we can empower these important community anchors that Black women are, the more that we're going to have progress together and as a whole.
You know, it's audacious, right? 1 million Black women, that's audacious.
If you can give people an opportunity and give them the kind of support that they need, perhaps the kind of mentorship that they would otherwise not get, they're going to do great things.
Invest in Black women.
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 What an amazing video. I literally get chills every time I see that video. It's so special. And it says exactly what we should be doing. Invest in Black women. And I see you in the chat box. I think we all agree. Such a powerful video. Now, I would like to introduce one of the amazing women from that video and an integral part of the 1 Million Black Women team, Margaret Anandu. Margaret made history back in 2018 as the youngest Black female partner in the history of Goldman Sachs. Yes, history. We have a history maker among us. She is the global head of sustainability and impact for the asset management business, and most importantly, is leading the investment strategy for this initiative, which is a big reason why we're all here tonight. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Margaret. Hi, Margaret.
Hi, Joteka, thank you so much. I agree with you. I've probably seen that video 50 times now, and every time I get that same just excitement and goosebumps. And yeah, I could not be more excited for this discussion. You know, this is probably the 31st stop on the listening tour, but it's an incredibly important one. You know, when we were developing this initiative, we knew that we needed to take a holistic approach. We knew that we wanted to find tangible ways to drive meaningful impact for Black women and their families. And both the data and, importantly, our own lived experiences showed us that we needed to make a difference at every stage of Black women's lives, from where they live to where they go to work to where they go to doctor, but crucially, where they learn and how they learn and who they learn from. And we've heard it from thousands of people just in the last couple of months, reiterating just how important early education is. And it's a space we're definitely going to lean into heavily. And, you know, my partner in this good trouble, Dina Powell, Asahi, all of us, we've said it a million times. Investing in Black women is simply smart investing. And we know this is the case with early education. It's an investment in the development of our precious children. It's an investment in mothers and their flexibility to continue to pursue their own education or stay in the workforce. And importantly, it's an investment in those Black women who are teaching our children every day, and all of the entrepreneurs out there who are running these centers in our communities. And so as an investor, I know this truly, it's hard to find better returns than that. And so very, very excited for the discussion. We're truly listening, we're learning so much. And so I cannot wait for this panel. So I will turn it back to you to introduce my my amazing partner, Dina.
Absolutely. And as the chat box says, you know, I just saw in the chat box, it says, Black women are the matriarchs of our family. We know the role that Black women play in this nation, in our households. And it's just so important, as you said, Margaret, to ensure that we're investing in Black women. Next, I would like to introduce another powerhouse, Dina Powell McCormick. Dina, who also tonight has some really great news to share with us. I can't wait for that. You know, the last time we did a listening tour, Dina shared some pretty powerful news. So I'm just waiting to hear what that news will be. Dina is a member of the Goldman Sachs Management Committee, and she is a true example of not only a force, but also a champion and an ally in this work and this initiative. She currently serves as the global head of sustainability and inclusive growth. And in addition to that, she leads the firm's sovereign business at Goldman Sachs. A very busy woman, but a very committed woman. Dina has a long history of building initiatives like this. She was instrumental in the development of 10,000 women and 10,000 small businesses, which we'll touch on later tonight. Welcome, Dina.
Thank you so much, Jyotika. I am so honored to be with you tonight and with my amazing partners, Margaret Anadu and Asahi Pompey. This is truly an initiative and a listening session we have been excited about. And as you see on the screen right now, you see some pretty powerful women. One of them happens to be my old boss, Secretary Condoleezza Rice, an incredible mentor to me for so many years, who truly helped us develop 10,000 Women, and Valerie Jarrett. Valerie and I had the privilege of traveling to Chicago, Detroit, New Orleans. She truly invested in 10,000 small businesses and really lent all that she had to ensuring that small business owners across the country, predominantly minority ones, had access to capital and business education. And it's just a pleasure to see that they are serving on our advisory council. I know you heard from Margaret, and frankly, Asahi now, who runs all of those programs. You will truly, I hope, see how committed we are as a firm. And the very first thing that we have done is truly tried to listen. 17,000 participants we have listened to in these listening sessions. And it was Condi and Valerie who said, education, education, education. We really have to focus on that. That is an opportunity gap that can change everything for Black women across the country as they hold up our communities. And for me, this is really personal. As an immigrant from Cairo, Egypt, who didn't speak a word of English when I moved to the United States as a 4-year-old, early childhood education was awfully important. And I know how many people out there think about that for their children. And so we could not be more excited to tell you. In fact, I'm going to be very honest. My children, my 6 daughters, don't necessarily think I'm the coolest. But when I said that Stephen Curry and Aisha Curry were joining our advisory council, when we said that Stephen was going to host this incredible listening session, they said, you don't really know them. So Stephen, we are so proud to have you with us. We are so proud of all that you have done through Eat, Learn, and Play. 16 million people who were hungry had meals because of you. So many Black female entrepreneurs were helped by the work of Aisha. Thank you. God bless you truly for the great example you are as a family and for all you are doing to support us. We're so proud, and I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you so much, Dina, for your kind words. It's an honor to be here with everyone on the panel, in the audience, and everybody that is committed to this initiative. It's truly, this is generational impact that we're starting. So happy to be a part of it, and I'm here today to host this beautiful panel. But hopefully, I can stay out the way so you can hear from some of the impactful women in terms of what we're going to do and how we're going to make that impact and that investment. And I want to share a little bit about my story that has nothing to do with me, basketball, or anything. It's about the women in my life who I've been lucky enough to be surrounded by. So many smart and talented Black women growing up. My grandmothers, my mom who's here with me today, my wife, Aisha, who Dina mentioned, my sister, and now blessed to raise 2 beautiful daughters. These women and so many others in our community have taken the time to not only support men and boys like me, but build us up so that we can realize our own goals. And that's why this investment is so important. I for one, think it's about time, and I know we're all of the same mindset that we not only listen to Black women, but invest just as much into their successes as they've invested into our lives and our communities. And so when we heard about the 1 Million Black Women Initiative, and Aisha got extremely excited about lending time and thought to the initiative, it was only right that I joined, and quickly we collected a great effort into supporting this historic initiative. And the approach, like other investments, hasn't just focused on Black women because they're currently in fashion, but I think they've realized that what we've already known for a long time, that investing in Black women means investing in the community and the country as a whole. So in partnership with my foundation and with my wife, Aisha, and Eat, Learn, Play, which is an organization that we started that focuses on ensuring that kids in underserved communities have access to what we believe are vital ingredients to a happy, healthy, and successful childhood. And that's around nutritious food, the opportunity to play in safe places and be physically active, but most importantly, a quality education. So I'm excited to discuss that topic specifically because it's especially important to me as a parent, to my family. And I'm speaking specifically about early childhood education and literacy. So today I'll be moderating this discussion with an amazing panel. You can see for yourself who we have here. I'm going to start though with the teachers, and then we'll bring in my fellow 1 Million Black Women Advisory Council members and a few other special guests at the end. So to kick off, I want to introduce you to my very first teacher, who happens to be my mother, Sonia Curry, who's here with me. She is a lifelong educator and founder of the Christian Montessori School of Lake Norman, which I am an alum of. So we go way back in terms of my educational experience from day one. I'm also excited to be joined by Ms. Karen Gethers, an elementary school principal in the Oakland Unified School District, so out here in the Bay Area where I currently am right now. So thank you for being with us, Karen. And Mom, let's start with you since you're here in the room with me. Can you share your thoughts on what you believe are the biggest challenges facing young students and their teachers today?
Well, first I want to thank 1 Million Black Women Initiative and Goldman Sachs and Eat, Learn, Play for allowing me to be a part of this amazing experience and initiative. And it just warms my heart to know that people are out there and our world is now changing their hearts towards Black women and how important we are and how great we can be. We're always giving and we don't always get the pat on the back or the accolades. So I want to thank you all for this opportunity and the impact that you're going to make. And I think for me, in answering your question would really be the same for both teachers and for students. The challenge would be time and resources. Time is everything. Time is the most valuable resource that every human being has, what we do with our time. And so with the resources, we can get curriculum, we can get money, we can get bricks and mortars, we can do all of that. But if teachers aren't allowed the time to train when they get the curriculum, spend time collaborating with one another, empowering each other, and time to really learn. I think COVID has taught a lot of that, where they got thrown into having to, have school online with students and how to do that. That was some of them are still talking about that they really felt that they have not or did not do a good job with that and felt as if they failed their students because of that. So from running my school, I know every year trying to get them to go to different training sessions and how to work it into the schedule during the year and go to conferences and become empowered as educators. It was really hard. So time is important. And then for the students, just time with adults or anyone that can sit down and just take 30 minutes a day, or to just hear them, see them, observe them, see where their challenges are, and just encourage them. So time and resources is the same. I don't think, whatever the challenge is in the world that we face, I think it just boils down to time and resources.
That's a beautiful perspective. And Ms. Gethers, can you also speak a little bit about why childhood literacy is so critical? I think that might sound like common sense, but I think there's a lack of awareness around where students are getting left behind and how critical childhood literacy is. And is there a correlation between, success in school and the age at which you begin reading?
Thank you so much. And I also want to thank the 1 Million Black Women Listening Session for, just choosing me as a representative of the Oakland Unified School District, Burkhalter Elementary School, Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated sorority, my family and friends. To answer, I'd like to kind of locate it in about 3 numbers really quickly: 0, 5, and 300. 0 is when childhood literacy begins, and it begins with language development. 0 basically represents when a child is in utero, and it begins there. So the child listening to voices, being read to, listening to music, anything that's in the environment. Once the child enters the world as an infant, it's the social interactions that make all the difference in the world. So you're right, Mr. Curry, your first teachers are your parents and anybody else that they surround you with. It's really, really important that by age 3, they have learned and listened to a lot and developed a lot of language, because actually that's when the brain grows the quickest. And really between 0 and 3, that's when the brain, after 3 years old, the brain certainly slows down. It doesn't stop, but a lot of that language development and possible literacy slows down. So that's really, really important. 5 represents school-age children. Between 0 and 5, school-age children should be listening and then forming language. So language and then literacy becomes very, very critical then. And so being read to, doing, reading and reciting, singing, reciting numbers, because numeracy is very important as well. 5 represents when students everything that happens before they get to school. Once they get to school, then teachers, as your mom said, can kind of take over. And even if they haven't been exposed to a lot, teachers that are well-trained, particularly our kindergarten and first grade teachers, can do wonders. I call them magicians, because they take students who haven't had sometimes a lot of beginning language and literacy and language development, and they create miracles. They turn those children into readers and writers and thinkers and singers and everything else. And so she's absolutely right. What's critical is that if students have been exposed, they're ready. Many, many of our students come to school, and if they're not reading, they have the reading readiness skills. If they are reading, then it's incumbent upon us as educators to take and run with that, the motivation, the encouragement, the enthusiasm. And so kindergarten and first grade teachers kind of build the foundation for that, and all the other teachers build on that and help students to gain a love of learning or numeracy or whatever it is that they want to do. So it's critical. To have it is a leg up, but there's no fear. If they do not have it, well-trained teachers will be able to do that and do it really well. I see it happen every single day in the school where I serve, Burkhalter Elementary School, and all the schools that I've been in.
That's a beautiful perspective, and it gives you a great kind of understanding of the journey of those very critical early stage years for a child's development. And kind of want to pass it back to you, Mom, in terms of for parents who are joining us on this stream today, who may be balancing a lot of different responsibilities as well as being a parent. Can you kind of give us some insight on how they can make a difference at home with their young kids, in all different facets when it comes to their literacy?
Yeah, and one of the things I want to piggyback on is the reading readiness stages of really sensitive period of reading is 3 to 7. So a lot of times, with societal pressures, if my child isn't reading by 4, and then the parents start panicking, or, what about right at 7? And so again, I would say I'd say one thing of encouragement: breathe. Sometimes we just feel pressure to just make our children geniuses. And then if they're not, then what's wrong with my child? And we just kind of go and spin a spin cycle as parents. And I've seen that over the 29 years of running the school, of just encouraging parents to relax a little bit. But the second thing is when you're at home, make it fun for you all. First of all, be an example, be a reader, just, shut the phones down, TV's off, sit down for 30 minutes after dinner, 15 minutes, and just say everybody's reading. I mean, if your child can't read, they are reading. If they have picture books, they're reading the pages. Talk to them, name things in the environment, encourage them to name, and they'll start showing you when they're asking, what's that letter? What's this thing? Respond, respond to them. And so be an example, be a reader yourself. 2, make it fun, make it part of the schedule. And then thirdly, if you can't do it yourself, there's always another sibling, there's a family member, there's someone in the community that's maybe a babysitter, there's grandma, grandparents, don't think you have to do it all yourself. If you just don't have that time, somebody can fill in, because it does take a village to raise children. And so you've got lots of opportunities if they're engaged in, after school programs or anything like that. But my first thing is always make home, have fun with them, take the pressure off of them that the world places on them, and sing songs and read, and just make it a habit. Create a habit early on, and they'll continue that.
Great words. You definitely lived that out growing up. So good job for that. Me and my siblings are very appreciative of that example, and making, literacy, but also education a priority in how we saw the world from an early stage. So we couldn't depart from that. So definitely appreciate that example. And thank you, Ms. Gathers, for your perspective as well, because obviously as a teacher and seeing the importance at those early stages and seeing those developments, people need to hear that more and more, how important those years are. And you guys gave us so much great, wonderful insight. So thank you so much for your perspective.
And I want to applaud Mrs. Gathers on her work. Keep it up. I'm lifting you up.
Now I'd like to bring forward Valerie Jarrett and Secretary Condoleezza Rice. Goes without saying, both incredible leaders and advocates for education. They also serve alongside me on the 1 Million Black Women Advisory Council. Thank you both for being here with us today. Secretary Rice and Valerie, I'll pose a couple of questions at you. First, what does access to quality education currently look like for young students? And knowing what the reality is, what should it look like in terms of the future and where this investment could go? Secretary Rice, let's start with you.
Well, great. Well, first of all, thanks very much. And I loved listening to Mrs. Gathers and to your mom. Reminded me of my own home where I couldn't escape a book if I tried. And my parents were teachers. And so education was a big part of my family. And in fact, I'm not even the first PhD in my family because my grandfather managed to get a college education. And so education was just so deeply ingrained in my family. But I think today about the fact that I think I can look at your zip code and tell whether you're going to get a high quality education. And I worry desperately about the kids who don't have that parent who is going to insist on the book club or insist on after school, because as Mrs. Gathers and Sonia know, a lot happens in the classroom, but as you've been saying, so much happens at home. And so I wonder what we can do with our resources and our investment for kids that don't have that system behind them. The kid that maybe is growing up in a family where maybe the parents don't even speak the language. I thought a lot about them during COVID. You know, I was actually homeschooled for a year because the state of Alabama, in its wisdom, said that you couldn't go to school unless you were 6 by October 31st. I was born November 14th. You think my mother and father were going to let me stay at home and do nothing? So no, my mother took a year off as a teacher and taught me. And by the time she finished, I was probably 3rd or 4th grade in things. But what did we do about the kids that don't have those opportunities? And I've been encouraging, and Dina, who's one of the best people ever to work for me. And I'm just so proud of all that she's done and that Goldman is doing in this regard. I think partnering with some of the institutions that are trying to fill that gap. I'm very active with the Boys and Girls Clubs because that's where the kids are. And I love, Stefan, the fact that you call it Eat, Learn, and Play, because our kids need to do all of that. So I'm trying to focus in my own work, my own engagement in the community on how we bring those institutions like Boys and Girls Clubs to, in a sense, fill in where the parent can't do what we've just been talking about, where maybe it's a staff member or even a teen who's been a part of that system. We started in Northern California in 1992, something called the Center for New Generation, that was a high quality after school and summer program, because I can guarantee you that the people that are my friends and my family, they're making sure that their kids go get those experiences that Mrs. Gathers and that your mom talked about. But somebody's got to advocate for those kids that don't have that advocate. And that's why programs like the Boys and Girls Clubs run, programs like Eat, Learn, and Play. And what I hope Goldman will be able to do through the 1 Million Black Women is identify those Black women who are successful, also identify where we can help those who struggle, particularly with their kids.
Mm-hmm.
Valerie, would you like to share some thoughts and experiences on this topic too?
Absolutely. Thank you, Stefan. Hello, everyone. I am delighted to be here. I'm thrilled to be a part of the council. There's very little that Dina asked me to do that I don't say yes to, but this was an easy yes. And this topic in particular is very personal for me. My mom began her career teaching preschool, and she did that for a number of years. And then she came up with this idea of trying to figure out ways of professionalizing the field of early childhood education. And so she and two of her friends and a benefactor launched a graduate school called Erickson Institute in early childhood development, where they teach graduate level courses, because this is a field of which evidence-based strategies work. And there's a body of research that now shows that when we invest in these young people, 0 to 4, their outcomes are dramatically different than if we don't, both in terms of the trajectory of their lives and also the cost to government. Every dollar that we invest in quality early childhood education saves us $7 down the line, oftentimes in the criminal justice system. And so when you think about, well, what do we have now? I think about my grandson who just turned 2 last week. And when I walk in the house, he grabs my phone, he turns it on, he tells me to punch in the password using kind of like 3 words.
It's universal.
He knows how to go on the internet, find Sesame Street, all like the menu, and then pushes whatever he wants to watch, and then starts singing. We were talking about singing earlier. His ABCs he knows. I'm not sure he knows what an A is, but he can recognize it. And I look at the fact that, look, talent is ubiquitous. My grandson, I think he's special, but he's just like every other kid. Opportunity is what is missing. And so figuring out how we can create that level playing field across the country where early childhood education is a right, not a privilege, where everybody has the opportunities that my grandson and I come from a family of educators. And so everyone in my family is valuing education. And we just know that every household doesn't have the opportunity to do that. I think about the poor mom who's working 2 shifts on a factory, coming home dead tired. Yes, she needs a Boys and Girls Club. Yes, she needs this incredible organization that the Currys have put together. I also think that there's an important role for government to set a standard, a national standard through universal pre-K where every child has this opportunity. We should not have our children going into kindergarten with many of them starting 10 steps behind. They should all be starting at the same opportunity. And everyone who said this earlier was right. Kids are sponges at this age. My grandson's fluent in 2 languages. If in 5 years you introduce another language, it's going to be a lot harder for him to learn it than it is right now. So why would we not be investing everything we can in these infants to 4 years old and beyond, of course, but in understanding evidence-based strategies for teaching young children, prepare them for life. And so part of what I think we have to do is level that playing field and create this opportunity for every young child, and to use both the private sector, the public sector, the civil society, not-for-profit organizations, all putting a spotlight on this important issue that 50 years ago, when my mother started out, it was just caregiving. People weren't thinking about, well, what kind of instruction are you giving these young people to prepare them for school? And so let's take advantage of all we have learned and make it available to every single child.
I love that phrase. I was talent is everywhere and opportunity isn't. And to level that playing field is important. We hope that obviously with your voice and Secretary Rice, your experience in terms of those the ways that the government and funding and resources can be positioned in different ways. You lending that to this initiative is a huge, huge value, knowing we hope that process is a lot faster for our kids, and that impact is seen in the near future. So we thank you both for your time and your perspective and your commitment to making a difference in this space. And very special guest who's next is one who kind of embodies what we're all talking about right now. And so I'd love to shift gears and hear from this impressive young student. I'll call her student athlete as well. But she's not just any student, she's also a national champion. I don't know how many people on this panel or in the audience can call themselves a national champion. I can't. But today we are joined by the current National Spelling Bee champion, Zaila Avantgarde, who's here. Thank you for being here. I just want to say, first off, what a win. We are all tuned in. Extremely excited to see you get the job done and win the National Spelling Bee. But also another kind of fun fact, Zaila, we go way back. She's amazing. I know y'all seen the highlights. She's an amazing basketball player. She's got better handles than me already. So I need some more lessons. But she was featured in a commercial to promote one of my signature shoes a couple of years ago, back in 2018. So it's great to see you again. It's great to have you on here. And I'd love to kind of hear from you, just as a young person on our panel. Can you tell us a little bit more about, how you got excited about reading and what your experience was like, and what advice would you share with young girls who are here on the call about how they can study and prepare to be a national champion just like you one day?
The way I got interested in reading is basically what happened is that I've always been when I was a kid, I was a super curious person. I always wanted to know the why, what, and when of everything. And so in my family, in my house, there's always been books, because both of my parents went to college and stuff. They had books all over the place. And so naturally, I became very curious about what was on the inside. But of course, at first, I couldn't understand it. But eventually, I did. And so going forward from that, one of the first major goals I set for myself was to read 1,000 chapter books, which I succeeded in doing when I was 12 years old. So that was the first big goal that I accomplished. And my advice to people who want to study and get into spelling is first, you need to like words, and you need to you also need to read lots of books, because reading does, I had a wonderful base starting off in spelling just from having a large vocabulary and stuff from doing a lot of reading. So you need to read a lot and study a lot too, because it's a big commitment and you need to go for it. And that's about it.
I like that, just a commitment and being bold and going for something. That is a message for everybody in society, mostly everybody on this call. But did you say 1,000 books? Is that what I heard?
Yeah.
So I have a 9-year-old daughter now, so I got something to tell her. She's got to pick the pace up a little bit. She's a curious one, just like yourself, and has a lot of chapter books, but I don't think she's got 1,000 here. So we got a new standard to hit based on your experience. I think there's a lot of young readers here with us. I know you kind of talked about 1,000 books, but with your focus being on literacy, what's your favorite book of all time, so we can kind of get to know you a little bit better?
My favorite books of all time is the Lord of the Rings series. I really love that book. Those books, I should say, are just from all the adventure and stuff that's in them. And I really would recommend them. They're really good if you like adventure and mythic prehistoric times and that type of thing.
That's you went from the books to the theaters, and you got a lot of connection to culture too. So that's pretty awesome. It's a good answer right there. We'll have to share that with everybody. But thank you so much for the example that you are, not just what you've accomplished, but the way that you just kind of spoke about, your experience and being able to pass that down to not only your friends and classmates at your age, but just that you are now a model for what, that commitment and that fever for learning is, and making that cool, because that's what we want to do. We know you can dribble the basketball, you got all the moves, you can put it in, you can shoot from all over the court, but making literacy and education and reading fun is something I know we all want to kind of, help our young people understand. So thank you for making that possible, giving us a nice model to kind of look after.
Thank you.
Well, keep going. We're encouraging you every way, the rest of the way. We'd love to kind of go back through and hear some final thoughts from our panel. Again, we appreciate everybody's time and perspective. I'll pose a question and I'll kind of pass it around, but just like to know, just based on everything that we've heard, if you kind of boil it down to kind of one takeaway for everybody here on the call, just how can we make the biggest impact in childhood education, and what would make that a positive change, from more diverse teachers, more books, smaller class sizes, anything like specific that we can take away from this call as something very important to this initiative that we're all trying to be a part of. Valerie, I'll start with you and I'll kind of go around the horn.
I would say all of the above. We have to make early childhood education a priority. That means we have to invest in our teachers and make sure that they have the skills that they need to be able to help our young people learn. We have to make sure that our children are in an environment where they are safe, where they are well fed, where they are not afraid, where they're being taken care of well, where they're being nurtured by their teachers and the support network that we know the village around each of us needs to have in place in order to succeed. And when we say we have to invest in our teachers, we also have to pay our teachers a proper salary. We cannot expect our teachers to take on this enormous responsibility and then pay them a ridiculously low wage. So pay them well, make sure our class sizes are not too large, have more than one teacher in a classroom. Any of you who've tried to manage more than 2 or 3 young people at a time, it takes a lot of effort. And so one teacher can't do that in a class of 20 students. So we need to make sure the class sizes and the support are in place. We need to say that as we are formulating our budgets at the state, local, and federal level, that this is a priority, that it matters, that it reflects the values that we want to have in society. And if we do that, then not only will talent be ubiquitous, but opportunity will be as well.
Secretary Rice, you want to follow up?
It's the Zoom disease. Just a couple of points. The first is I believe very strongly in investment. I think it's really important, but we have to invest in the right ways and in the right places. We do know some things that have not worked. We had an experiment with Head Start, which was great in many ways, but we learned a lot from that. So let's make sure that we know the lessons of the past and apply them this time. Secondly, I want to invest in the kids who are neediest. One of the reasons that I worry a little bit about the word universal is, frankly, my kids' parents don't really need that investment in early childhood education, and we are going to run out of resources. And so let's make sure that we're investing in the kids who are the neediest. I would also say, let's invest in teachers who can make learning fun. My best teachers were those who gave me a lifelong love of learning, and we ought to want to really inspire and reward those teachers. And we all need to have high expectations for our kids. You know, even at Stanford, where I teach, if I have low expectations for my students, they will live down to them. And if there's one thing that my parents passed on to me was they had a great love and unconditional love, but they also had high expectations. And sometimes when we talk about underserved kids, we talk about them in a way that they can't. Well, they can. And if we believe in them and show them that we believe in them, I think they have a really good chance to succeed.
Speaking of high expectations, Mom, you want to follow up on that?
I think what just came to mind, I know I'm a component or a proponent of Montessori education. And Maria Montessori started her first school in an inner city apartment building in the basement. And she set up a classroom in the basement, and then the children would come down and have school while the parents went to work if there weren't any other care for them. And she started with the students who people kind of wrote off, who had learning disabilities or whatever. And what she found was that, in her theory, was every child can learn. We just have to listen to them, watch them, and they'll tell us everything that we need to know about them and how to reach them. And so one of my things have always been be intentional. So we can talk about all these things, but we got to do one thing, just do one thing that'll add to another thing. And so, you know, I would say, let's take all these resources or whatever, the money that comes in and ideas, take it to the people, take it to them, put it in their environments, because then they're comfortable there. When we take them out of their normal environments, they have the stress of acclimating to that, and they can't put that energy into their learning organically. So as much as we can get it there to them versus forming it, and then they got to find ways to get there, let's do that. And then at home, say yes, and you can, and we will. Now, when that yes will happen, when you will do that, and when we can do that, it's a matter of timing, and that's okay. But always tell your children they can, yes, and we will. And I think that will motivate them, encourage them to be all that God has placed in them to be, because they've got that encouraging word. Like Zaila said, you know, books was just laying around. And so, you know, she was just reaching and grabbing, and I imagine there wasn't one time where a parent said, girl, stop reading, put that down, let's do this. So we need to do that. We need to have those atmospheres at home, in our homes, encouraging our kids that there's nothing that they cannot do.
Lastly, Ms. Gathers, I know you the pulse of Oakland and can speak to what the children are saying and needing. You wanna round us out in terms of what is gonna make that huge impact for us going forward?
Yes, I want to ditto everything that everyone else has said. It was important for me as a kid growing up in inner city Hartford, Connecticut, to have teachers that looked like me and reflected me. And so what I'm interested in doing is investing, yes, in early childhood. We have to invest in the homes of the caregivers that are step in for the parents who are there. But we also have to invest in graduates of universities, particularly HBCUs, that can come out and be teachers that reflect many of the students that we're trying to reach. That was so very important for me as an African-American woman, to have 2 African-American female teachers from kindergarten through 6th grade. I tell the story all the time. They cared for me in ways that were unimaginable, because my mom had 3 children. She was a single mom. She worked 2 jobs to support us, but I had lots of support. It was definitely the village that took care of us and many children like us. So we got to reinvest at at the early literacy, at the early beginnings. We also have to reinvest in HBCUs that can produce the teachers and the educators that we need to come back to our communities and serve those children.
That's it right there. We know how important the HBCUs are in our community, and continue to raise awareness around the beautiful universities and colleges that they are, and the talent that they produce and support, not just while they're on campus, but well after. That is a great call out right there. And last but not least, obviously, Zaila, you are, representing, young people all across the world in terms of how important education is. Is there one thing you want to leave us with in terms of how we can continue to make an impact?
First off, I really agree with the whole idea of the teachers thing. As a homeschool person, I definitely know about how trying to handle 4 children, especially one of those a 2-year-old, is a big job. So I can definitely imagine, as Jared said, I can imagine how a teacher with 20 students is like, there's no way that's about to happen properly. So I definitely believe in that there need to be more teachers, and also we need to encourage teachers. Like I know from like experiences I've had how teachers will sometimes feel so like they're kind of like unwanted, or maybe wanted, but like not appreciated because they're being paid these horrible salaries. And it's like, why go into this? You have to be like really charitable to just go work like elementary school. So salaries need to improve, and there need to be more teachers.
I love it. Spoken like a true champ. So thank you so much for your words of wisdom. And this is an amazing discussion. I'm humbled and honored to have the chance to talk with all of you and hear your perspectives and your experience, and how committed you all are to this. And your insights as well on this important subject are really well received. So thank you so much. And we have a lot of people in the audience, but I'd like to pass the mic over to Jateka so we can expand the discussion and include some amazing teachers, parents, and students who are joining us today. So take it away.
Well, thank you, Stephen. And might there be another career trajectory for you? Amazing job of moderating that dynamic panel of just dynamic women. In the chat box, we see you in the chat box. We see you online and on Twitter using Black Women, hashtag Black Women Impact. And we see the conversation that you're having. So many points from the audience. I just want to call out, saying, yes, we must invest. Yes, Secretary Rice, you're exactly right. Yes, Valerie, we have to start very early. Kimberly Beelan from Johnsonville, South Carolina said, this conversation is imperative. And as a Black mother, this is so necessary. So before we get to the audience questions, I want to bring back Margaret Anandu, who's the Global Head of Sustainability and Impact for the Asset Management Group at Goldman Sachs, and introduce another amazing woman behind the 1 Million Black Women initiative to the panel, Asahi Pompey. We saw Asahi in that video that we saw where she said, "Mic drop." Asahi is the president of the Goldman Sachs Foundation and serves on the management committee. She also is one of the company's highest ranking Black women. Thank you both for being with us tonight. So that was just a dynamic panel, a dynamic conversation. I just want to start off, what did you think about the conversation that you just heard? I'll start with you, Margaret.
I was blown away. I was blown away from everything that Sonia said about time and resources, which I think we find is the case, not just in investing in early education, but in all these issues. It's about just doing the work. I loved the advice from Zaila, right? Make the big commitment and stick with it. I think we all on the 1 Million Black Women team should take that advice to heart. And I love what Valerie Jarrett said, and then Zaila really followed up on this idea of salaries. We have to pay people what they're worth, especially teachers doing this important work with our children. So I was blown away by the conversation. And I know we're all going to be up all night reading every single bit of the chat box to take all of those ideas and investment solutions.
Absolutely. Asahi, you often talk about the life cycle of the Black woman, and you often talk about the mic drop moment. Talk to us about, your reactions to that dynamic conversation, everything you heard, as it relates to, the problems that you try to solve every day.
Joteka, so many quotable moments. I couldn't agree with Margaret more. In my career, this being able to work on 1 Million Black Women has been the greatest privilege of my career. And as I think about all the comments that were said today, challenges everywhere, but all too often opportunity is not, the theme of books, books, books everywhere and those interventions. I have to tell you, Joteka, I have to share with you an experience I recently had. I sat down as part of our 1 Million Black Women initiative with Black women who are leading childcare centers across this country, childcare centers in Detroit, in Philadelphia, in New Orleans, to hear from them. And they said a number of things that were in fact echoed in this conversation. They said to us, they think that early childhood education is still one of the only areas where it's not seen as a profession. Right? It's seen as babysitting. And they said, let me tell you about my day. I'm not sitting at all. I would love to be sitting. And that whole notion of having to change the narrative around how these critical years are seen, right? That 0, that 5, that 300 that Githers mentioned previously, I think is absolutely critical. So the need to change the narrative around the importance of this year. And I think of those years of their lives. The second thing I'd say is they talked about the importance of investing. Now, if there's anything that Goldman Sachs knows, we know a good investment. And investing in not only Black women, but early childhood education in particular, a number of the things that Sonia says about the imperative of that investment is something that I think was fantastic and underscored in today's discussion. I saw a lot of reference to the need for investment in the chat room as well. And I think the more that corporations, individuals grant in this area, it says this is a profession. These years are absolutely critical. And if anything had underscored it, it's this year of the pandemic. I've got 2 little boys here at home. You'll probably hear them in the background at some point. And homeschooling, working with them on education over the last year, underscored for so many of you here listening, and certainly for me in particular, the imperative of early childhood education.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here tonight and the work that you lead. You're going to stay with us, and now we're going to get into the questions and all of our amazing panelists. I love it whenever I see this screen of all of these amazing, wonderful, brilliant leaders. We're going to now listen and respond to some of the conversation from our audience. We've had a lot of excitement and engagement around this initiative. I wish we could highlight all of the great questions and comments that have been shared, and I promise that we're going to try to get to as many of them as we can. First, we have a written question that came from our registration site, and it came from Delina King in Beaumont, Texas. And that question was, what can be done about the internet in rural areas, low-income households on buses, and parents who are not computer literate? Very important question, very important. I'm from a very rural part of South Carolina, so really appreciate that question. I'd like to throw that to Margaret on our panel. How do you respond to that?
Sure. Well, first I have to say shout out to Beaumont, Texas. My mom is actually from Huntsville, Texas, so just a couple hours away. So I know Beaumont really well. The digital divide is a significant focus for us. And actually, Sahi touched on it and some of the earlier panelists touched on as well. We can't get to any of these issues, whether it's education, innovations, even in healthcare with telehealth, getting online to get a new job without really solving that digital divide. And so we're focused on it in a few ways. One, when we talk about the rural digital divide, it's not that middle mile, that actual infrastructure that takes connectivity from the highway, from sometimes the mountains, in some cases, literally to someone's home. And so we have to invest in public-private partnerships and really get that funding for that infrastructure and then get the capital to the developers and partners and companies who are doing that work. We also, and I'm glad this was part of the question as well, we also suffer a real digital divide, even in urban areas, which I think is sometimes not as known a problem as the rural digital divide. In a lot of those cases, all of the infrastructure is there. What's missing is the actual access in people's home, the ability to afford it, the devices that our children need. And so in that work, we're working with lots of great not-for-profits around the country. One, for example, Silicon Harlem here in New York, to get devices to children and families that need it, but also, and I keep going back to Sonia's comment about time and resources, it's also actually spending the time with those kids and families to teach them how to use those devices. And so there are real applications there for us to both invest commercial capital, but also really make philanthropic investments that are needed as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Margaret. So we have a live question, and that question will come from Donna Frisbee Greenwood from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Donna.
Good evening, Joteka, and to all the distinguished panelists. I especially want to thank the 1 Million Black Women team at Goldman Sachs for bringing us all together to discuss education. I'm here representing the city of Philadelphia, where I am president and CEO of the Fund for the School District of Philadelphia. And I also have to shout out my sister, Melanie Campbell, who leads the Black Women's Roundtable. One challenge that students face is a lack of diverse teachers. We know that all children do better when they have teachers from diverse backgrounds, but Black children do especially better when they've had at least one Black teacher. They're more likely to graduate from high school. And if they've had two, more likely to graduate from college. And in Philadelphia, where 52% of our students are African-American, but only 24% of our teachers are Black, we are working to attract and retain more Black teachers. And while we have some ideas about that, and we have a partnership with the Center for Black Educators, and also with Tobias Harris of the Philadelphia 76ers, we would love to hear some ideas from the panelists about how we increase the number of Black teachers across the country and also retain them in the field of education.
Absolutely. Donna, thank you for the work that you're leading, and thank you for that question. I think the saying, as you asked that question, it's very hard to be what it is that you can't see. Very important question. Asahi, I'm going to go to you. Where can a philanthropic grant or partnership play a role in disrupting the challenge and maybe providing a solution, as Donna has outlined in a question?
Yeah, it's interesting because this panel of Black women who run healthcare centers actually offered us a few solutions exactly to the great question that you asked. One is, we've mentioned pay. We've got to pay people, and I think I want to underscore that's absolutely critical. The second thing is, we've got to make it an attractive profession for Black people. They want to be able to do it, but frankly, they may not be able to afford to do it. And we have to make it attractive to them by showing them a career path, right? And the impact that they could potentially have. Three is, we've got to start talking to them about this as a potential career path very early on, right? And showing them the impact that they can have in communities. I think so many people I talk to say, look, I remember that phenomenon. I can tell you the first Black teacher that I had, his name was Mr. Garraway, and he was in the 5th grade. It took until 5th grade for me to finally have a Black teacher, and the differentiated impact that it had to have a Black male teacher. I think of my 2 boys and the classrooms that they're in the neighborhood that I live in, and they don't have a lot of Black teachers at all. My sons, I remember, came home and told me when they had their first Black teacher. So those critical moments, I think, investing in Black teachers, investing in the training of Black teachers, the promotion of Black teachers, the retention of them. But I think it all goes back to the dollars, right? We track where we pour our dollars, and we see results where there's investment, which I think goes back to the whole thesis of 1 Million Black Women, namely the investments has got to be there from a philanthropic component, but also from a community investment angle as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, we have one last question, and we will have a live question from Paris Broyelis from Conway, Arkansas. Paris?
Good evening. Thank you guys for having me. My name is Paris Broyles, and I've been in education for 15 years. and I'm an academic interventionist in Pulaski County Special School District. And my question is, in what ways can we influence the government or legislators to make education more relatable to students and how they can use in their everyday life and to make real life connections?
Well, thank you for that question. I can't think of anyone else to turn to than you, Secretary Rice and Valerie Jarrett. Secretary Rice, I'll start with you.
Well, I think that the first thing to recognize is that our system of education is actually pretty local and pretty state-based. And so I think you really have to look to your local governments, to your state legislators. And I love the idea of relatability because increasingly there are programs in the schools that, for instance, teach kids how to think about financial literacy as a way to get to math. That teach kids how to do a problem that relates to sports in order to get to math. There ought to be all kinds of ways to make learning not just drudgery, but actually something that you think you're going to be using. Valerie mentioned the way that her grandson is now so capable with these devices. These kids amaze me. Whenever I want to understand something, I go find a 14-year-old about technology because it's almost as if they were born with it in the womb. And so I think these programs, and again, sometimes just the chance, Mrs. Gathers mentioned, sometimes the chance for teachers to be innovative, to have the space to be innovative, that they don't feel that they have no control even in their classroom to try different things with their students. I think those are some of the ways that we can make education more relatable. And if I could just say one word about the earlier question about getting people into teaching, one of the things we need to look at is with credentialing, could we take better advantage of people who are maybe mid-career and want to go back into teaching in the schools? Because I think it doesn't always have to be the 22-year-old who goes to become a teacher. I'd love to see an opportunity for people who've had some life experiences to go back into the classroom and teach.
Thank
I
you.
agree.
Yeah, Valerie.
I agree totally with Condi about that. In fact, my mom's graduate program, and I should have mentioned at age 92, she taught 5 hours of courses today. And I keep saying, when are you going to retire? And she said, there are too many teachers left to teach. And many of her students have had other jobs, have taught, but want to go back for an advanced degree. And so I think you're right. It shouldn't just be the young person. We should be pulling from all ages. But I also think that part of the challenge here is that we have to empower people to show up in their local communities, put pressure on your school board, put pressure on your local mayor that appoints the school board if it's not an elected school board, run for the school board yourself, that you have to get in the faces of the decision makers because leaders are only going to respond to pressure. Many of them are well motivated, but many of them will listen to you if you show up. And I can think, I was just telling the story the other day about my daughter's second grade teacher who said to me in parent-teacher conference, perhaps if I didn't spend so much time at work, my daughter would be doing better. Well, I think my daughter ended up doing just fine, but she kind of got in my head and I didn't complain about her. Why didn't I complain when I knew that I had a teacher who did not value working mothers? And so if I didn't feel empowered to do something, just imagine. And so parents have to show up and get involved. Advocates have to show up because many times parents can't. And we have to vote. And we have to vote people out of office if we don't think that they share our values and our priorities. And we have to encourage people to get involved in public service. And Condi's absolutely right. This is a local issue. Those who really care and value early childhood education, we have to support them and encourage them to run on that platform and then hold them accountable when they're in positions of leadership.
Well, thank you so much and such important advice, Secretary Rice and Valerie. And, you know, there is a popular demand. Everyone wants to hear from you, Zaila. As a student, you know, the audience would love your input on how can we help improve early childhood literacy and get more young people reading books like you do, even when school is not in session. I want to throw it to you.
How would you do that? Well, the first thing I would recommend is like having books all around, like just randomly, like you go to the table, we're just saying there's a book on the table. You don't have to read it or be interested in it, but I suggest you do. And that type of thing just kind of really make books like just something, even when a kid is little and can't even read them or something like that, just have them around. Like all the time I see my 2-year-old brother, who I don't think he can read, he just be looking at books and stuff like these textbooks that I've been reading. And like, I know he can't read them, but he's like making noises like he's reading. And that's like a good sign because you can tell that he's getting ready to be a reader and stuff. And so that type of thing is like very important, like just having books lying around for it, especially like the little bright colored board books that you have so you can't like chew it up or something. And then you just kind of just have books around for them to look at and become interested in.
Absolutely. Great advice. And for all of you who are watching, get some books and put them out, put them on the table. Great advice, Aila. I want to just thank everyone who sent in questions and feedback, and a very special thanks to our amazing panelists. Just an inspiring conversation, and much thanks to the amazing 1 Million Black Women team. Thank you so much, Asahi. Thank you, Margaret. Thank you, Dina, and to the entire team powering this very important initiative, and all of our partners as well. What happened tonight is so essential and very practical and very helpful. Your wisdom and your insight will go directly to Goldman Sachs to help shape how they will deploy $10 billion. Yes, again, I always sort of, Dr. Johnetta Besh-Cole says $10 billion with a B. Yes, how we will deploy $10 billion in investment capital. As you have heard tonight, we know that this is an investment project, and this is going to be work that we will do over the next 10 years. So if you have an investment idea or project that you would like to be considered, or if you want to stay connected with this work, here is what you do. Following this event, we will share with you a post-event survey in which you can share your feedback and stay connected with this work. We also invite you to visit goldmansachs.com/1 Million Black Women and follow the hashtag Black Women Impact. Now I'm going to turn it back over to Stephan, who will close us out. Stephan?
Thank you very much. Not much else to say. I know this has been a very impactful session. Thank you to everybody, the 1 Million Black Women Initiative and the team members and all the panelists. Thank you so much for having me, my mom. I know we've been impacted by this conversation as well, and we want it to continue to go. We have a lot of work to do. We know how important, education and literacy, how much of a difference that's made in our family and our lives, and hope that it will continue to make a difference in the lives of the next generation, and ensuring that every young person has access to a quality education. Because we know that getting kids to be proficient in reading at an early age needs to be a huge priority. It's a priority at our foundation. And we remain focused on this, and through some of the listening and research that we've done and what has been kind of discussed here, we know that, third grade reading levels are typically an accurate predictor of high school graduation and dropout rates all across our country, as well as, predictors for career success. And nationally, I'll leave you with some stats that will hammer this home. Nationally, 2/3 of children are currently reading below grade level. And that number is unfortunately significantly higher for Black students. So getting kids to become proficient readers at an earlier age needs to be a priority. In addition to those third grade reading levels, we know that most kids who start ahead stay ahead. So creating that opportunity for talented kids all across our country is definitely important. So let's continue to work together to ensure that kids are being prepared to become proficient readers from the time that they're born through their educational journey. And let's keep this conversation going, not just here through the survey and through this panel, but in your own communities, in your own networks, and your own ways to reach and impact. This initiative is an amazing thing. This investment is huge. And this is definitely a great step in the right direction. So thank you all for being a part of this. Thank you for having me. It was an absolute pleasure. and looking forward to seeing this impact put into action. Thank you, everybody, for being here, and until next time.